Henry Riley is here with an interesting story. You've been digging.
Yeah, no jokes. James, there have been suggestions and rumours bubbling away for some time that the future of the Reclaim Party may be in doubt. Now, that's because the private company that's behind the political project, which is called the Reclaim Party Limited, has failed to submit its accounts by the deadline.
Hang on, which one is the Reclaim Party? Is that the one that's run by the bloke from Lewis who wasn't Lewis, or is it the one that's run by the bloke that everybody wishes was Nigel Farage?
So it's the bloke from Lewis.
Who wasn't Lewis. This
Okay. Is Laurence Foxs.
Right.
More on him in a moment.
Can't call him a moron.
No. So no, it's in more on him.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Yes. He's a very good musician, I gather.
He has sung, hasn't he, on TV a few times. But a few months ago was the deadline, the 31st of August, for those accounts to be submitted. They are now very much overdue. Now, the Reclaim Party Limited lists Laurence Foxs as one of its directors. It failed to file its accounts by the registered deadline, meaning that the last accounts actually published by the Reclaim Party Limited only cover the period until the 30th of November 2021. So there's a bit of a black hole between then and now. And I've been speaking with a leading tax lawyer, James, who's weighed in, who is called the party Inept. Now, the Reclaim Party, to give you a bit of background, formed by the actor Laurence Foxs alongside the businessman Jeremy Hoskin back in October 2020. It did previously have a name as the Brexit Express, but then they changed the name to the Reclaim Party when Laurence Foxs was involved. It doesn't currently have any elected officials at any level of government. It did have Andrew Bridgen on its books at one point, but he left some months later, citing a difference in direction with the party. But I mentioned that leading lawyer, James, Dan Neidle, who's the founder of Tax Policy Associates, and he told me that actually the accounting error, if they were to file their accounts, it would only take 15 minutes.
What concerns me is political parties not following the law, not following the basic requirement that they file accounts. And for this company, those accounts would probably take an accountant about 15 minutes to draw up. I doubt they're hiding anything. I expect they're just inept, but really they should get onto it.
Mr. Neidle told me what the potential consequences could be for Reclaim.
Every company has a legal requirement to file accounts. In theory, if you don't file accounts, you can be fined. Sometimes it can even be an offence. Companies House is strangely chill about this, and most of the time, kind of nothing happens. And if you don't file, and you still don't file, and you still don't file, Companies House will, or their computers, will automatically strike the company off like a death penalty for a company. And that's what started to happen here.
So this is very serious for the Reclaim Party Limited. So Companies House have started that process of writing the company off. It's been paused, though, James, because there was an objection received by the registrar back on the 12th of December. That only means it's temporarily suspended for a few months, and then that process of writing them off will continue unless, of course, those accounts are filed. But if you look at Laurence Fox's X or Twitter, it doesn't look like he thinks the party's going anywhere. He has said that he's very serious about standing for Mayor of London again.
It did very well last time.
He got 1.9% and came sixth when
it's
he
more
stood.
than 1.8%.
But of course, some way off the 5% deposit, so he's a few percent off.
Okay, but Jeremy Hoskin
deposit
can afford that, I believe.
Well, I mean, certainly by the accounts, there's a suggestion that it probably could be filled in some way, that money. Many candidates do lose their deposits, but it didn't go swimmingly well in 2021 for him. I mentioned about the other politicians. So Andrew Bridgen no longer involved. He cited the difference in the direction of the party. He's the MP for North West Leicestershire. They did also have a councillor, James, you'll remember, in Market Drayton on the town council. This was the former Conservative councillor, Anthony Allen. He has actually resigned from the party as well. He's resigned so they don't have a councillor or an MP.
What happened to the MP again?
So Andrew Bridgen left the party. There are various rumours as to why that.
What's your favourite?
Why that may be. Well, there was one reported by a political blog that it was to do with a Christmas tree in a company car.
Tell me more.
Well, I haven't had that confirmed, James, just to make absolutely clear, but it was reported by the website Guido Fawkes that there was.
You can't really trust them, can you?
You can't. Well,
because they were describing my Mystery Hour board game as being unpopular or unsuccessful over the Christmas period. Someone showed me this yesterday. It's got a 4.6 approval rating on Amazon.
That's outrageous.
So they just found a couple of made-up reviews from people who've never played it but don't like me and reported it as if it was a news story. So I'm going to gallop to the defence of whatever it is you're about to tell me about company cars and Christmas trees. And say you can't trust that lot as far as you can throw them.
Well,
which admittedly, having seen the fellow who runs it, wouldn't be very far.
What they reported, James, and as you say, hasn't been stood up, but that there's a company car for the Reclaim Party, right, and Andrew Bridgen had borrowed it to do some work in his constituency, presumably to visit constituents and be involved in engagements. Laurence Foxs, who's in London, not Leicestershire, needed that car back because of a Christmas tree. He wanted to transport a Christmas tree from where he bought it back to either his office or his home. It's unclear where. Andrew Bridgen refused to give the company car back. And therefore that sort of sparked this feud that happened.
The lad from Lewis who wasn't Lewis needed the car to get a Christmas tree, a party Christmas tree.
Well, that's what we're led to believe, a Christmas tree for the Reclaim Party, hence why he needed the Reclaim car to transport it.
Okay.
But I digress, James.
Heavy stuff. I mean, it's Frost Nixon.
I know. This is where I'm going to make my name. But so no councillors, no MPs. But lastly, from Dan Neidle,
tax, no VAT. That's a song. That's not an allegation.
But Dan Neidle, lastly, James, did tell me some of the confusion was because of the different organisations that are behind the Reclaim Party. There are various companies that are involved. You've got the Bad Law Project. You've got the Reclaim Party Limited, who are involved in this. Now, Dan Neidle told me that actually, if this is as it seems and the party doesn't file its accounts, then Reclaim will lose their whole party membership list.
Exactly what each of them do ain't clear, but it looks from the privacy notice on their website that it's the Reclaim Party Limited that owns the membership list. So if the Reclaim Party Limited was executed by Companies House, then they've lost their membership list, which wouldn't be a good thing for a political party.
Lastly, James, there was a suggestion that Reclaim could work closely with other parties, including Reform, which is the one run by Richard Tice, as you referenced.
He's the fellow that everyone wishes was Nigel Farage.
Nigel Farage is involved with that party, yes. And the UK Independence Party, UKIP, who is still going.
Really?
And
what a good grief! That's all right. Have they got a new? Is it like Bucks Fizz? Have they got? Are any of the original people in UKIP anymore, or is it a completely? Listen, I've offended Bucks Fizz fans now. I just forget the lineup. The point is, some of these old acts keep touring, but there aren't that many people in it who people would recognise from the original incarnation. So what's UKIP
That's
like?
fair. Well, Neil Hamilton's still the leader.
Good God, really?
Of UKIP. And yes, he's still the leader of the party. And then you've got the SDP, the Social Democratic Party, which has, for instance, Patrick O'Flynn, the former
But he's
MEP.
He's the one that dragged Nigel Farage out of my studio when I was interviewing him in 2014. He's joined the SDP, so that's not an SDP that Shirley Williams and Roy Jenkins would recognise.
No, it's not the David Owen sort of party.
What is it then?
Well, they do claim to be affiliated to that original SDP group.
Right.
But, as you would suggest, I would suggest some of the members perhaps wouldn't agree with.
It's all a bit People's Front of Judea, isn't it? So UKIP, he's ex-UKIP and he's now SDP.
He's
and
SDP.
Some of the SDP are now Reform or Replace. Replace? No, Reclaim.
Reclaim. But this is, unfortunately, it's not going to get better, James. Because,
and what happened to the Christmas tree?
Well, I don't know what happened to the Christmas tree, but on the Reclaim Party, there was suggestions of an electoral pact between all of those parties. I can confirm to you, James, that electoral pact will not be happening now. I've heard reports from within various parties that I mentioned there that sort of pact will not go on going forwards between UKIP, the SDP, Reclaim and Reform. Reports as well, and Laurence Foxs has mentioned this, that Reform have approached the donor for Reclaim to try and get him to fund their party. This is an allegation by Laurence Foxs.
Right.
But that they asked Laurence Foxs to stand aside, something he's not prepared to do. Lastly, I have approached the Reclaim Party for comment. They have declined to do so far, but the Reform Party have told me it's a sad situation, but Laurence seems to fast be becoming an echo in a vacuum.
Well, there you go. I suppose there's worse things to be, isn't there?
Yeah, probably.
Dan Neidle, of course, the man responsible, I think, for bringing Nadeem Zahawi's tax affairs to
Yes,
to the public light.
He's very hot on all things to do with that, as you know, James. He was very helpful with regards to this story in terms of pointing out exactly what the potential pitfalls were, and I sense he's a man who's going to keep playing a big role in tax to do with British politics.
Yeah, he's a very interesting contributor. I touch with these private. I mentioned earlier these private individuals like Alan Bates scoring rather bigger scalps, as it were, than those of us who are actually paid to do it for a living. So I don't want you to speculate unduly, but is this party funded by Jeremy Hosking? Is it petering out? Do we think that seems to be the case?
It seems to be going that way.
Not with a bang, but with a whimper.
It certainly, if they don't file their accounts, according to Dan Neidle, this is going to be a tricky situation for them. Not least losing their membership list, but also the sort of pitfalls that come with that.
That's a shame.